For some of us scientists at the National Museum of Natural History, field work can mean trekking far into the jungle. For others, the journey is a little closer to home. We probe the depths of the ocean and work in the rainforest or in the dry hill country, bringing the long-buried past to light. For over a century, we've traveled the globe to understand the biological, geological, and human world we live in. Collecting artifacts or specimens for scientific study is the key.
About 80% of what I'm getting out of the canopy is new to science and is undescribed.
Increasingly, we're in a race against time and the impact of the modern world.
I feel like we're now the last generation of people who can learn from people like this.
We've never seen a living giant squid because we've never been able ourselves to get into their natural habitat.
With new technology, we can go places we've never been before to study and learn.
Okay, jettison system.
These animals live in the last frontier.
We know where curiosity, inquiry, and persistence can lead to discovery.
And at that moment, my colleague said, "Look at that owl in that tree." And I dropped my water bottle and looked, and I immediately, we all knew that it was the bird we were looking for.
With our planet over 4 billion years old and evolving every day, there are still a lot of questions to answer.
Each time we get a specimen, each time we have an observation, we learn a little bit more, and that's really what's exciting for us.
These are black-footed ferrets. This one was collected in Kansas in 1887. These haven't been seen in the wild since the mid-1980s.
This is the largest fish collection in the world. About 8 million specimens in total. You name a species and we probably have it.
This is the thigh bone of Diplodocus, which is about 150 million years old. But not all dinosaurs were the size of a house. Some just wanted to stay out of the way. This is the thigh bone of Othnielia.
These are some of the tens of thousands of plants collected by an NIH program to investigate anti-cancer, anti-AIDS properties in plants around the world. When these are mounted, they'll be added to our collection of 4.5 million plant specimens that document the flora of the world.
The National Museum of Natural History is a repository for millions of objects.
This collection represents a data bank of scientific knowledge, answering questions we have today and those we may have in the future.
You could really look at the collections as like a library. Not every object may be out on exhibit, but they're all available for people to reference. And I think that's one of the most important things about our collection, is they're highly used.
Having a lot of specimens in a museum collection allows us to study the diversity within a species. These red-tailed hawks may all look different, but it's actually the same species. We have individual variation sometimes in adults and juveniles. Males and females sometimes look different, and sometimes it depends on the geographic location of the bird. So that's one of the reasons that we need so many specimens in a museum collection.
And as much as we are concerned with the loss of biodiversity in the world today, we need to be concerned with the loss of cultural diversity.
We use things similar to this today.
And in many ways, the artifacts that we have in the museum are testimony to the passage of time and to the triumph and genius of cultures all around the world.
In this building, we house all the objects of our nation's natural heritage. Our job is to care for all these objects until the next generation, and hopefully for another 100 million years.
Each day at the museum, we explore new frontiers of science.
I use genetic tools to study how new bird species arise in nature.
The research that I'm doing now is looking at a group of trees from the Amazon. It's trying to make sense of how the species might be related.
My research is on mammals. For example, with colleagues from the National Museum of Mexico, we examined this deer and we were able to prove that it represents a separate species.
I'm using modern genetic methods to look at the evolutionary history of plants. Questions such as which species gave rise to the lima bean, although perhaps that's not something that everyone would be excited about.
These and other projects may seem highly specialized, yet this research broadens our scientific knowledge. At the same time, we use our expertise for practical problems.
Well, birds like to hang out at airports, and they often get in the way of airplanes when they take off and land. Often they get sucked into the engines. Sometimes they strike the windshield. We match up feathers. We match up beaks and talons. We have about 650,000 specimens here that we can use as a reference to make the identification so that airport managers and pilots can learn to avoid the species that they're hitting.
Another research program looks at unusually high death rates among dolphins.
These coastal bottlenose dolphins, they all live within about 3 miles of the coast. We're using their living room as our recreation area, and it's our impact on them that concerns us. We actually go out and study the animals in the field and then bring back remains of animals that wash ashore or caught in fishing nets.
At the base of the left flipper, net mark.
And it's from examining the animals themselves that we can gain an idea about what they do in their day-to-day lives out in the wild.
For most of us, research is both a passion and a privilege. This museum is a scientific institution, and research is what we do. Our work as scientists begins with questions, but it doesn't end when we find an answer. It's our job to share what we've learned with the worldwide scientific community. Whether they're in the Arctic or in Africa, in South America or northern Canada. In this way, we uphold the museum's role as an international center for scientific inquiry, research, and education.
Okay, everybody, ready? Go. Gently.
We're also committed to training the next generation of scientists. Here, while researching in the cloud forest, entomologist Terry Irwin works with university students from Ecuador.
Yeah, there it is.
Back in Washington, our 10-week research training program gives college undergraduates a chance to work on their own projects with museum scientists.
Original part of it. This is an opportunity to teach young people what it's like to be a scientist and hopefully get them excited about doing biology or geology or any of the other things that we do here in the museum.
Pegmatites are characterized by having very large crystals. They can get about almost 10 times as tall as you.
We reach students through interactive, televised programs.
So we invite you to join us on the third field trip, where we learn about volcanoes and earthquakes.
We also support the Discovery Young Scientist Challenge, a national competition for middle schoolers.
Keep in mind that this is a real forensic case. This is not just something that's been made up.
Part of the experience is a day of one-on-one learning.
What's this mean, oh my?
Oh my, it means like, gee whiz, cool fish.
As scientists, we know that for knowledge to thrive today, we must share it with our peers.
This is the skull.
For it to flourish in the future, we must teach and encourage those who follow us. For they are the ones who will see what we can only imagine today.